The night Marcus walked into that conference room, he had no idea that the woman everyone had warned him about would turn out to be the only honest person in the building. Marcus Hale was 41 years old, a facilities and building operations manager for a mid-sized insurance firm in Columbus, Ohio. He fixed things for a living. HR Dorsten. HVAC systems, pipe joints, load-bearing problems that the architects had promised would never happen. He was good at it. He was quiet about being good at it. 2 years earlier, his marriage had ended the way some marriages do. Nastinder Pondentin Tinder die Chinder Nasinder der Onder. Not in shouting or betrayal, just in the slow mutual recognition that two people had grown into strangers who shared a mortgage. The divorce was clean. The apartment he moved into afterward was smaller. The evenings were longer. He was not bitter about any of it. He was just tired, the way a man gets tired when he has been steady for too long with very little reason to be. His colleague, a man named Derek, who managed the sales floor and who treated office culture like a hobby he was very serious about, had been pushing the idea for 3 weeks. The company was launching what HR officially called a cross-departmental relationship initiative, which everyone in the building understood to mean a structured speed dating event disguised as a team-building exercise. Attendance was technically voluntary. Derek had circled Marcus's name on the list before Marcus had even seen the list. "You're going," Derek said, dropping a printed flyer on Marcus's workbench one Tuesday afternoon. The workbench was in the basement. Marcus was in the middle of replacing a coupling on a water main. "I wasn't aware I'd agreed to that." "Adorklaning. Desakted in der jury." You agreed by not saying no fast enough. That's how these things work. Marcus set down his wrench. The fluorescent light above him hummed at a pitch that had been annoying him for 11 months. He had fixed everything in the building except that light, which he kept forgetting because the moment he stepped away from it, it stopped being his problem. "Who else is going?" he asked. Derek's answer was a list of names Marcus mostly recognized, and one he did not. When he got to that one, Derek lowered his voice with the particular enthusiasm of a man sharing information he has promised to keep confidential. Elena Vasquez, HR compliance. Word is she's... Derek made a face. Difficult. Marcus looked at him. Difficult how? Am die Ohr en Stambentandim. She corrected Greg Paulson in front of the whole leadership team, said his hiring numbers violated policy, in writing, with footnotes. Marcus picked up his wrench. Sounds like she did her job. I sir not nichin prurinden den desindasinen. Derek did not seem to know what to do with that, so he left. Marcus finished the coupling. The light kept humming. The event was held on a Thursday evening in the second-floor conference room, which had been rearranged with small tables and battery-powered candles that someone had clearly ordered from the same website they used for the holiday party. There were 8 people total. Marcus arrived 3 minutes early because he arrived 3 minutes early everywhere and was handed a name tag and a glass of wine he did not particularly want. He saw her before Derek had the chance to point her out. She was standing near the window with a glass of water, not wine, water, and she was looking at the city below the way people look at things they are not really seeing. She was maybe 37 or 38, dark hair pulled up with a clip that had not fully done its job, dressed in a charcoal sweater and dark trousers. There was a streak of something on her sleeve that might have been ink or might have been something from the supply room. She looked like a woman who had come directly from working and had not apologized for it. Marcus did not approach her. He found a seat at the nearest table and read the event card that explained the format. 6 minutes per pairing. A prompt card face down on each table. Rotate on the bell. The bell rang. The first 2 pairings were pleasant enough. A project coordinator named Amy who wanted to talk about the company company's new wellness initiative, and a man from legal whose name Marcus forgot immediately. Then the third bell rang and Elena Vasquez sat down across from him. She looked at the name tag on his chest. Then she looked at his hands. The knuckles were still slightly marked from the coupling job, and he had not entirely won the fight with the grease under his left thumbnail. Facilities, she said. It was not a question. Operations, he said. Though I do fix things. I know. You fixed the women's restroom on the 4th floor last month. There's a note in the maintenance log about the pressure valve. You wrote it in complete sentences. He looked at her. Most people did not read maintenance logs. Most people in HR especially did not read maintenance logs. I like complete sentences, he said. So do I. She flipped over the prompt card. It read, "What is something you've changed your mind about in the last 5 years?" She read it, set it back down, and looked at him. I'll go first. I used to think that systems fix people. That if you build the right policy framework, behavior follows. I've changed my mind. People fix systems or they break them. The framework is just paper. Marcus considered that. Outside, a siren moved through the street below and faded. I used to think that keeping things running quietly was enough. That if nothing broke, I'd done my job. And now, Konstantin Now I think some things are supposed to break so you find out what they're made of. Elena looked at him for a moment in the way that people look at someone who has said something they did not expect. Not surprised exactly, more like confirmed. She picked up her water glass. The prompt card sat between them, unanswered in any conventional sense. The bell rang. She stood, straightened her sweater, looked at him once more. Complete sentences, she said, and moved to the next table. Marcus watched her go, then looked down at the prompt card. He turned it back face down, the way she'd left it. The remaining 3 pairings passed. Marcus paid attention, answered questions, was pleasant. But his attention kept finding its way across the room to the table where Elena was sitting, where whatever she was saying was making her current pairing look alternately delighted and slightly uncomfortable, in the way that the truth sometimes does. At the end of the evening, Derek materialized at Marcus's elbow with the expression of a man expecting a report. Well, Derek said, it was fine. Did you talk to Vasquez? We were paired. And Marcus finished his wine. She reads maintenance logs. Derek stared at him. That's it? That's a lot, Derek. Asine kend, den sandrins. He left before Derek could decide whether that was a compliment. The following Monday, Marcus was on the 4th floor replacing a section of baseboard trim in the corridor outside HR. It was quiet work. Sandene Serbinchan Sidin, der signed Dirdinchan Serdinchan. Measured cuts, clean lines, the smell of fresh wood, and the low hum of the HVAC he had finally balanced correctly 2 weeks earlier. He was on his knees with a level when he heard footsteps, and then the sound of a door, and then a voice, low and precise, coming from inside the HR suite. I understand the concern, Greg, but what I told the leadership team is documented fact. I can send it to you again if that would help. A pause. I'm not being difficult. I'm being accurate. Those are different things. Another pause, longer. Yes. Have a good afternoon. The door opened. Elena stepped into the corridor, looked down at Marcus on the floor with his level and his trim board, and stopped. The baseboard, he said, because she was looking at it. It was warping. I noticed. 2 weeks ago, I stand tanim irdan titsent. I put a note in the request system. I know. I'm the one who approved it. He checked the level. The bubble sat exactly center. He held it up briefly so she could see, then set it down. Everything okay? She was quiet for a moment. Greg Paulson believes that compliance is a matter of opinion. Greg Paulson also believes the parking spaces on the east side are reserved specifically for him. Something shifted in her face, not a smile yet, but the architecture of one. She leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching him work. You're not going to ask what the meeting was about? None of my business. Most people ask. Most people, Marcus said, fitting the trim board to the wall, are looking for something to talk about at lunch. This time she did smile. It was quick and dry, and it changed her face considerably. She pushed off the wall. The trim looks good. I'd say it'll look better tomorrow when the paint dries. She nodded once and walked down the corridor. Marcus listened to her footsteps fade and then returned to his level and his work and the smell of fresh wood and said nothing to anyone about any of it. Over the next 3 weeks, Marcus and Elena developed what could not quite be called a routine, but which both of them recognized as something. She walked past the corridor where he was working at roughly the same time each morning. He was usually there because the building's eastern wing had a checklist that reliably took him until 10:15. She never stopped without purpose. Once to report a flickering light in the copy room, once to hand him a printed form about asbestos remediation protocols that she had highlighted and annotated in green pen. He fixed the light. He read the protocols. He filed them correctly, which she apparently confirmed because the next morning she passed his workbench in the basement and said simply, "Thank you for the filing," and kept walking. Derek noticed because Derek noticed everything involving other people's lives. He said across the lunch table one Wednesday, "You've been to the 4th floor a lot lately. There's a lot of work on the 4th floor. At zijn de nature dat sander diensten. Der is aan de nie de in den Gersanity." There's a lot of Elena Vasquez on the 4th floor. Marcus ate his sandwich. She found a baseboard problem. Has she found any other problems? She found 12 minutes of Greg Paulson's calendar that were misattributed in the timesheet system. Derek pointed his fork. "You like her." "I respect her," Marcus said. "She does her job and she doesn't apologize for it. That's not a small thing." Andy Aldarsensins. Derek was quiet for a moment, which was unusual. Then, "The company picnic is Saturday. I may have told her you were going." Marcus set down his sandwich. Derek. I told her it was optional. I also told her you usually bring the good coffee from the place on 5th. I don't bring coffee to the company picnic. You do now. You're welcome. Marcus stared at him. Derek smiled, cheerfully unrepentant, and stole a chip off Marcus's plate. The picnic was held at the park 3 blocks from the office, and Marcus brought the coffee because he was already going and because Derek's logic infrindir den dir derm dir anden din near dir. Infuriating as it was, handen dir den din near had a structural integrity to it that Marcus could not entirely dismiss. Elena arrived 40 minutes in, alone, with a book she was not going to read tucked under her arm. She scanned the picnic tables once, and her eyes stopped on Marcus at the end of the row with 2 cups of coffee on the table in front of him, and she walked over without ceremony and sat across from him and said, "Derek told you I was coming. Not in des second so. Derek told me I was bringing coffee. He told me you bring good coffee." He was making that up. She looked at the cup in front of her, picked it up, took a sip, set it down. "It's such a dodam de sons." He wasn't. A pause. "He's terrible, by the way. He means well. That's the most dangerous kind." Marcus almost smiled. Almost. A lawnmower grumbled in the distance. Somewhere behind them, a group from sales was organizing a volleyball game with the specific energy of people who had decided this would be fun and were committed to it regardless of evidence. "What's the book?" he asked. She tilted it so he could read the spine. It was a book on organizational behavior and institutional trust. "Beach reading," she said. "You're not at the beach." I'm not a beach person." "Neither am I." He wrapped both hands around his cup. The coffee was still warm. A sparrow landed on the table 2 feet away, decided they were not interesting, and left. "What made you go into HR?" "I'm good at reading systems," she said. "And I'm not good at pretending not to see when something's wrong." She looked at him steadily. "People keep telling me those are liabilities. Natsingdert den kindart siri." People who benefit from things being wrong would say that. The look she gave him then was different from any she had given him before. Not the sharp-edged assessment of the conference room, not the dry acknowledgement of the corridor. Something quieter and more careful, the look of a person who is recalibrating. My ex-husband said I made everything a policy violation, she said, including our marriage. Did you? I made one request.
Once?
That he stop telling people I was overreacting when I wasn't. Her jaw set slightly. He called it a personality conflict. Marcus was quiet for a moment. A cloud moved overhead and the light on the grass changed from flat to warm and back again. My ex-wife said I cared more about what was broken than what was in front of me, he said. She was probably right. I have gotten better at looking up. Elena said nothing. She turned her coffee cup once in her hands. You're looking at me differently than you were a minute ago, Marcus said. I'm trying to figure out if you're being honest or strategic. I'm a facilities manager. I don't have the bandwidth for strategy. Andi enda thorndirt. The almost smile appeared again, more fully this time. I'd like to have dinner sometime, she said, if you want. Not because Derek manufactured a situation, because I'd like to. Marcus looked at her. The afternoon light caught the side of her face, and somewhere behind him a volleyball missed the net and someone laughed too loudly, and the sparrow came back and left again. Yes, he said. I'd like that. That was when Greg Paulson appeared from the direction of the barbecue, holding a paper plate and wearing the expression of a man who had decided to come over and be friendly in the specific way that powerful people perform friendliness. He looked at the table, at Elena, at Marcus. Vasquez, he said pleasantly. Didn't expect to see you here. I work here, she said. Greg laughed as though that were charming. He glanced at Marcus with the brief, flattening look of a man deciding that the other person at the table is furniture. Getting to know the building staff? Marcus said nothing. He was looking at Elena. Elena looked at Greg with the complete, unimpressed attention she gave to things she was about to deal with. Marcus runs building operations. He keeps this facility functional. He also reads, files things correctly, and brings better coffee than anything available at the leadership offsite you expensed last quarter. She picked up her cup. Is there something you needed, Greg? Greg's smile held, but something behind it had quietly left the building. Just saying hello, he said. Hello, she said. She turned back to Marcus. Greg stood there for one more moment, then took his paper plate elsewhere. Marcus watched him go. Then he looked at Elena. You didn't have to do that. I know. She set her cup down. I wanted to. A beat. Also, I checked the expense report on that offsite. It was extraordinary. Marcus laughed, a real one, short and genuine, the kind he hadn't made at a company event in longer than he could remember. Elena looked at him like the sound had surprised her, and then she was laughing too, quietly, and the afternoon sat around them warm and ordinary and entirely sufficient. They had dinner the following Friday at a small Italian place on the east side with mismatched chairs and handwritten menus and a candle in a wine bottle that had been burning long enough to produce a significant wax monument. Elena ordered simply. Marcus ordered the same. The conversation moved the way good conversations do. Were na nain and na nain, nak nain sin. From one honest thing to the next, with no performance and no maintenance required. She told him about growing up in a house where rules were either everything or nothing, and how she had spent her entire adult life trying to find the space in between. He told her about his father, who had been a plumber, and how fixing things had always felt like a form of respect for the structure, for the people inside it, for the idea that things worth building were worth maintaining. She said, at one point, I'm stiff because I've spent 10 years in rooms where I had to be. He said, that makes sense. You don't have to be stiff here. She looked at him across the candle. I'm working on it. Take your time, he said. I'm not going anywhere. Under Nasinduri. She reached across the table and touched his hand once briefly, the way you touch something to confirm it's real. Then she picked up her fork and they finished dinner, and the candle kept burning and neither of them rushed any of it. 3 weeks later, Greg Paulson filed an informal complaint suggesting that Elena had exceeded her authority in raising the hiring violation issue. The complaint was reviewed by the division head. Elena provided her documentation, which was thorough, correct, and footnoted, and the complaint was dismissed. Greg was asked to attend a policy refresher. He did not look happy about it. Elena did not look surprised. Marcus heard about it from Derek, who heard about it from someone in accounting. He texted Elena one word: documented. Her response came 30 seconds later. Always. He smiled at his phone in the basement next to his workbench, under the fluorescent light that still hummed at a pitch that had been annoying him for 14 months. He looked up at it, got a ladder, replaced the ballast in 11 minutes. 6 months after that, Elena's lease ended, and she did not renew it. She moved her organizational behavior books and her green pens and her very good coffee habit into Marcus's apartment, which was smaller than her old place, but which had, as she noted on the first morning, excellent water pressure. "I fixed the valve last year," he said. "I know," she said. "I read the log." A year after that, on a Saturday evening in November, Marcus took Elena back to the Italian place with the mismatched chairs and the handwritten menus. The candle in the wine bottle had been replaced. It was a new bottle, same idea, and the waiter who had served them the first time recognized them and said nothing about it, which was exactly right. After dinner, Marcus reached into the pocket of his jacket and set a small box on the table between them. Elena looked at it, then at him. "You're not going to make a speech," she said. "No." "Good." She opened the box. The ring was simple, a band of warm gold with a single stone, nothing that required a spotlight or an announcement. She looked at it for a moment, then looked at him with the expression she reserved for things she had decided were real and worth protecting. "Yes," she said. "Obviously yes." He put the ring on her finger. She turned her hand once to look at it, then set her hand flat on the table and left it there, and reached across with the other one and held his. The waiter brought dessert they hadn't ordered, on the house. Outside, November did what November does. The candle burned down. On a Sunday morning the following spring, Marcus was in the kitchen of their apartment. Their apartment, the word still felt like something he was trying on and finding that it fit. Making coffee with the whole beans Elena had started ordering from a roaster in Portland. She came in from the small back room she used as a home office, hair undone, wearing a sweater that was his, holding a green pen. She looked at the coffee and then at him. "You fixed the drip on the faucet," she said. This morning. "You were asleep. I heard it last week." "I know. I was getting to it." She sat down at the kitchen table. He set a mug in front of her. She wrapped both hands around it, the ring catching the morning light, and looked out at the small square of yard where the first green of the season was beginning to show. "Do you know what I keep thinking about?" she said. "What?" That prompt card. From the speed dating thing. She looked up at him. "What?" "What is something you've changed your mind about in the last 5 years?" She smiled, and it was full and uncomplicated, the kind she had been learning to give without the wall behind it. "I used to think being certain was the same as being safe." Marcus sat down across from her the way he had sat across from her at a folding table with a battery-powered candle the first time she had ever looked at him like he was worth looking at. "And now," he said, "now I think the bravest thing I've ever done was sit down at that table and say something true to a man I didn't know yet." The coffee steamed between them. Outside, a bird Marcus could not name was making a sound in the yard that was small and very cheerful, and Elena opened her green pen and went back to her work, and Marcus sat with his mug and the morning and the entirely ordinary miracle of where he had ended up. What would you have done if someone told you the most difficult person in your building was actually just the most honest one? And have you ever let someone else's opinion of a person stop you from finding out who they really were? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. If this story stayed with you, leave a like, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.